You want it to be one way.
What?
You want it to be one way.
Man, I don't
want
know
it to be one
Man,
way.
stop. Stop saying that.
But it's the other way.
Errol Spence is back on Twitter, and he's been extra busy. Recently, Errol Spence came out showing the world that he just had surgery to remove some cataracts from his eyes, and basically made some statements in reference to why he was being hit with those left jabs and left hooks from Terrence Crawford, obviously referring to the cataracts in his eye, quite possibly being that. Well, the fan base of Errol Spence has definitely magnetized and used the law of attraction to finally have an excuse as to why Errol Spence lost. Terrence Crawford has been pretty quiet since the information came out, pretty much saying no comment. But today, Terrence Crawford has decided to come out of the woodworks and respond to a lot of the information that's been getting sent his way. From information with Errol Spence saying that if anybody understands and knows, your eyes get checked before a boxing match. He says anybody who's a real boxing fan would know that, but the casuals will believe anything. He also responded to Teofimo Lopez, who tried to take shots at the two-time undisputed champion's legacy, saying that the fighters he fought were injured and that he did not do anything to really garner any of the accolades that this boxing space has been trying to give him. Well, it's a lot to unpack, obviously. We're not going to do it here, but you know how we do it. It's your boy Claymore Ring. This is the ATP Combat Media Show. Let's go. What up with it, though? It's your boy, Claymore Rain. This is the ATP Combat Media Show. Welcome one, welcome all. Hello, my people. We are outside. Nah, we inside. I'm inside of a studio. I'm not outside. But metaphorically speaking, we are out here. Salute to all the subscribers who have subscribed over the past couple of days, and all the guys who've been here from the beginning. We're growing. The community is coming together. I appreciate the support. And if this is your first time showing up and seeing this content, I do advise you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you can get all the alerts when this content drops. Errol Spence back in the public eye, as he's been on a hiatus since July 29th's loss to Terrence Crawford. We have not heard much from him, but as in recent times, since the new year has come around, he has come out of the dark into the light, and he is communicating that he is dealing with some issues, but plans on not retiring from boxing. He says this is far from his thoughts, but recently put out a tweet and some pictures. I don't know if it was on Instagram or where he put it out at, but ultimately had some surgery to address some cataracts that was in one of his eyes. I don't know if it was the left or the right one. I think it might have been the right eye, but don't quote me. But ultimately, more importantly, Errol Spence speaking towards and referring to the fight between him and Terrence Crawford, saying that that was pretty much the reason as to why he was being hit with shots to his left eye or right eye with jabs and hooks, as he stated. Don't quote me, not word for word. Matter of fact, what did he say word for word? Let's not even mix words. Let's just, get right to it. Basically stating that he had cataracts in one of his eyes, and that's the reason why he got hit with left and right hooks. Terrence Crawford finally responding to that information, and finally saying something, because they didn't say something in the beginning when he dropped it, but did say that, listen, let's see if I can find it. Last I can recall, We definitely get our eyes checked before they fight. Before every fight, I'm just saying, any boxer would know that, but casual fans will say and make up anything. Some people might say that Terrence Crawford is calling Errol Spence out for making excuses, saying that this isn't a legitimate reason, that the exams that he would be going through, and the same thing that he was expecting Errol to go through with the doctors, would have found something like that. That's not something that would have gone under the radar. But I think me and you both know that there have been a lot of politics in boxing, even in quite recent times, with Tony Weeks kind of exposing that part of boxing where they're seeing things going wrong with these boxers before the match starts, and that ultimately doctors are, pretty much allowing the fighters to fight anyway under those conditions. So it's not far-fetched that something like that would have happened with Errol Spence. I think that's a huge thing to bust wide open as far as cases against whoever's responsible for protecting these fighters from themselves at times when these fighters want to fight anyway. But that's what these checks and balance systems have been set up between doctors and referees and things of that nature to protect these boxers from themselves. But ultimately, Terrence Crawford not seemingly open to hearing any of the excuses or anything that would take away from his victory. And I can co-sign and resonate with that feeling, to not really try to hear any of that. At the end of the day, we both work hard to be where we're at. And, you brought the best version of yourself that was available to the ring, and so did I. And your best version of yourself wasn't able to compete with the best version of myself. At the end of the day, most fighters who go into fights don't go into fights 100%. You go through hard, rough training camps, and things happen. Fighters go into fights all the time with injuries, but at the end of the day, whatever the injury was, it wasn't a hard enough injury to keep you out the ring. There's no excuses. When we get inside the ring, the results are the results. You have a rematch clause. In that rematch, make the adjustments that you feel like you needed to make, and give it your best shot the second time around. But nobody is trying to deal with the idea of excuses, right? But I think there's a bigger story here. There's definitely a larger story to this whole entire situation. A few months ago, I would say close to around the time that fight happened between Errol and Terrence, I put a video out. Actually, was it closer? Maybe. It was actually around the time when Errol Spence, when pictures came out of Errol Spence. I don't know if you guys remember, Errol Spence had a picture out where he was out of shape. And people were like, this guy activated a rematch clause, and he's supposed to be getting ready for a rematch supposedly with Terrence Crawford, but he's not in shape. He looked like he was about a good 190 plus pounds in that picture. And I put a video out and I think the video might still be on my YouTube channel, but I put a video out called "If You Stay Ready, You Don't Have to Get Ready." And I was referring to the lifestyle outside of the ring of boxing, that these boxers who commit to their lifestyle, to the lifestyle that they've chosen to be in, or actually commit to their craft, if we want to be more specific, by eating right, getting the proper sleep, not drinking, only eating the best foods they can eat, being conscious of how important their bodies are to them in the profession that they've chosen to be in. And I explained in that video that in the biggest game of your life, in the biggest challenge of your life as a boxer, it's going to be the intangibles that make the biggest difference when you're fighting somebody who's just as skilled as you, or even more skilled than you, but your hardest opponent that you'll ever come against. Those intangibles will make the biggest difference on that stage in your life. And ultimately, what we're seeing now is that coming into manifesting into what we're seeing right now, right? We're seeing Errol Spence, who's basically also tweeted and keeping it honest. And that's why I am a fan of Errol Spence, a man's man, somebody who can be held accountable for his own actions and doesn't make any excuses as to why, but more so just being honest about why, and saying that ultimately he believes that he had this ass whooping coming to him pretty much because he hadn't been living the life of a boxer. And he laughed, LOL, at the end of it. And he was just being honest with himself to say, like, he had to recognize the fact that Terrence Crawford's conditioning and the way he prepared himself and the way he fought and carried himself throughout his whole entire career definitely made the biggest difference when it came down to them fighting in the ring. He felt the difference in the conditioning, and he felt the difference in his conditioning, knowing that I'm just not who I need to be able to beat this guy who's in front of me tonight. And that's what I've always wanted to explain, but couldn't really get the ears of a lot of fans, because when you start speaking that way, especially with the fans, the fanatic space that we're in, where fans are celebrating boxers more than they're celebrating the sports. And keep in mind, of course, we have our favorite boxers. Just like in sports, we have our favorite teams. But at the end of the day, boxers and players come and go. The team always is there. And in this case, boxers come and go, but boxing is always there. And we should always be a fan of boxing first. Like a broken record, you'll hear me saying this over and over again because it needs to be said over and over again. Errol Spence did not live the lifestyle of a boxer. Partied, drank a lot. And if you do your research, you'll see that cataracts and alcoholism are very closely related. Now, am I calling Errol Spence an alcoholic? I don't know him like that to call him that. But I will say partying, drinking excessively, not staying in shape, combined with getting punched in the head for a living, this is not a good mix of things to bring together as far as being something that's good and healthy towards your longevity as a human being and definitely as a boxer. It's not conducive to that lifestyle. So there's no secrets, and Errol Spence has admitted this not only in his recent tweets, but also in interviews he's had, explaining how he was not walking around on weight, how he would have extreme unhealthy weight cuts, doing extreme things to lose weight, even down to when Victor Conti, who was interviewed on the Manager Marty show, explained that he thought, in his opinion, that Errol Spence might be a victim of something called altitude sickness, because 4 days before he was supposed to fight Terrence Crawford, he was running in the mountains in Henderson, Nevada, or in Las Vegas, in the Nevada area, and at very high altitudes, running hard. Why was he doing that? Now, I have my personal opinions of what it could have been, but I'll say it like this. I don't think somebody does that who's ready to go already in a fight. That's like somebody who's still trying to get ready. Maybe even somebody who's trying to do an extreme weight cut, or just trying to improve on their conditioning because they haven't been properly preparing themselves. The week before the fight, most fighters are just relaxing, doing light workouts. They don't want to risk any injuries. They have a big fight that's going to be coming around in a few days, in hours, if you wanted to break it down that way. So to put himself in that position, to me, it's very reasonable to see it as, once again, one of those last moment attempts to square away something, to check some box that wasn't checked during the camp. So at the end of the day, we have to acknowledge what it is. And we have to also be ready to celebrate boxers who commit their life to the sport and provide us with the best versions of themselves. This is how it should be, you know. And if you really respect the sport, you'd look at it something like that. I think we're in a desensitized generation who's so used to seeing what they're seeing as far as violence and things of that, or even in this boxing space, being so used to seeing boxing at such a low level and just seeing one person in the ring being 100% superior to the next person in the ring and thinking that's normal, not seeing competitive fights. In 2024, like I said in the beginning, not in the beginning of this video, but what I said in the beginning of the year, 2024 is going to be that year. It's going to be the year of exposing. We saw it with Deontay Wilder, who didn't commit to the lifestyle, never, all these years going by, never learned how to box properly, was able to get away with his right hand, and ultimately got exposed on the biggest stage of his life. The biggest opportunity of his life got exposed, 12 rounds to 0, you know, had nothing, no answers for the issues that were brought to him in that squared circle. And last year, Errol Spence showed us that. You saw that with Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Tank Davis. And Ryan Garcia obviously was just completely being outclassed in the ring. And you can tell that he just wasn't committed to his craft the way he was supposed to be. And he even admitted it himself in interviews to say that he wasn't. You know, these things make a difference. What you do outside of the ring makes all the difference on what happens inside of the ring. So if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Now, Terrence Crawford also responded to Teofimo Lopez, who took shots at the two-time undisputed champion and saying that the fighters he fought were injured, referring to Errol Spence and his potential injuries or weight cut issues or whatever have you, or Kell Brooks, who had eye injuries from fighting Errol Spence and also from fighting Triple G, right? He also brought up fighting against, he brought up a couple of fighters that did have issues. Jose Benavidez, who got shot in the leg and had leg issues going into the fight. Ultimately, Terrence Crawford fought whoever was put in front of him. And all of those guys that we're talking about, outside of maybe Kell Brooks, who did have an injury in boxing, but those guys had self-inflicted injuries. They didn't commit to their passion the same way. They didn't put themselves in position to be 100% in those fights. That is not Terrence Crawford's issue. You know, if anything, that's something to add to Terrence Crawford's resume about who he is and how he protected the gift that God gave him and took it seriously and didn't take it for granted. But, you know, Teofimo had some points as far as speaking towards in Terrence Crawford's direction. I'm not going to lie to you. Some people from the outside looking in might say that Teofimo was doing a little bit of clout chasing, you know, trying to put his name in the same conversation with a two-times undisputed champion. You know, even saying that he was calling himself identifying with a two-time undisputed champion, saying that he was that as well because of, you know, what he did with Lomachenko at 135 pounds and what he did with Josh Taylor at 140 pounds. And being that Josh Taylor, you know, vacated two of the belts and wasn't beat for it, he felt like, you know, he had earned an undisputed title. But that's not the way things work. You're not an undisputed champion at 140. It's arguable to say that you're undisputed at 135 pounds, but, you know, there are also arguments pushing back at that being with the situation with Lomachenko's WBC title that was, you know, upgraded to a franchise title, and an actual real title was given to Devin Haney, some might argue, right? So, but at the end of the day, I think that's what we're looking at with Teofimo. I would say that we're looking at somebody who's trying to be recognized as something great. And look, Teofimo's a talented boxer on the road to greatness. Greatness is definitely something that's within his reach, something he can get. But is he there yet? Has he earned what Terrence Bud Crawford has earned? I don't think the books are ever going to show it that way yet. That's not what it's going to say. No matter how many times you say that over and over again to yourself and to every camera that gets in your face, it's not going to make it true, right? And you fighting Terrence Crawford, I heard that he offered to fight Terrence Crawford. What does that mean? You know, obviously you're chasing big money, and that's you're a prize fighter. Respect to that, but you're in a division right now, and like Terrence Crawford said, focus on your own division. Literally, Super Bowl weekend coming up on February 8th. Teofimo has a fight lined up with Jermaine Ortiz. That is not a light order for him to be dealing with. That is something heavy and something he should be focusing all his time and his energy on, nothing else. All these opinions on things outside of that fight, I think it's almost disrespectful to Jermaine Ortiz, and you're lining yourself up for a potential huge upset in a fight to where most people think you have a skill set that should get you a victory in this fight. But sleeping on Jermaine Ortiz and thinking that this is something that Jermaine Ortiz is a part-time job, I think you're lining yourself up for a huge rude awakening if you're not focusing where you should be. Now, I'm not saying he isn't focusing where he should be. Maybe he is, but you know, it's reasonable to say when you see him speaking about the things like Terrence Crawford and always trying to discredit fighters around him, that, you know, he's more focused on what people think of him now rather than to be thinking about and being focused on what people will think of him in the future at the end of his career, when he's made all the accomplishments that he's come here to make. And at that point, get his Hall of Fame ballot, where he's in the Hall of Fame and he's earned the respect of his peers as well as the boxing space and community, and then be able to speak more factually on top of the accolades that he's talking about having. I think Devin Haney and him have to really figure it out. I think they're the 1 and the 2, however which way you want to put it, whether you want to put Teofimo at the 1 and Devin at the 2, or Devin at the 1 and Teofimo at the 2. Regardless, I don't think we're going to argue that they're both the 1 and the 2 in the 140-pound division. That's a fight that seems more realistic and would seem as if, from my perspective, that'd be a fight that Teofimo would want to focus on trying to get, because that would actually validate some of his arguments as far about how great he is and him being the number 1 and the things of that nature. You have other fights with Subriel Matias in the division. You have Gary Antoine Russell. You have Ryan Garcia. I mean, you've got so many fights in the most hottest, heavy, talented division right now in boxing, 140 pounds. I couldn't imagine why you'd be focused on potentially trying to fight a Terrence Crawford, somebody who's already made it clear that he wants to fight his rematch with Errol Spence and move on to fight a Canelo Alvarez. And if he can't get that Canelo Alvarez, quite possibly is going to retire. So what are we talking about, right? Put in the work. I always said for Teofimo, from my perspective, all that, retiring conversation that he was doing as if he did so much, and all that, wanting to be known as something that he wasn't yet, was just so it didn't make any sense. Your work is in the ring. That's where you shine at. That's where you do your best stuff at, is in the ring. That's what I think Teofimo should focus on for the rest of his career right now, which he even admitted the retiring thing was a publicity stunt, and it's okay, man. Getting your bag of tricks, I understand. You want to stay relevant, you want to stay on top of the news, but at the end of the day, do the work in the ring, and then we'll see what your career is going to be. This is the year of earning it. No more giving accolades to people who haven't earned it yet. Other fighters who we won't bring up in this video, take some advice from that same advice we were giving to Tio. Do the work in the ring. Fight the best. Challenge yourself. Prove to us who you are. Answer the questions and check the boxes. But that's pretty much it. I'm not going to stay long. You guys in the comment, put in there what you guys think as far as the Errol Spence situation. How do you see it? As far as Teofimo, how do you see his situation? What do you think the next best thing is for Teofimo to do? What should he be focused on? Do you guys think that the Terrence Crawford fight would be something he should do? Or are you more so aligned with the way I'm thinking as far as Teofimo staying at 140 and winning titles down there and fighting the best fights he can get down there and taking advantage of a division that's so heavy in talent? But on that note, and at this point, it's your boy Claymore Rain. This is the ATP Combat Media Show. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell icon so you can get all the alerts when this content is dropped. But on that note, and at this point, we out.
They hate when you elevate. You're stacking up losses, I'm handing them out, yeah, I had to go delegate. It feel like I'm floating, I'm lost in the moment, I swear I could levitate.